We're 10 days out for the 2025 NFL Draft. It's time to talk about the biggest boom or bust prospects that could be New York Jets in April. Without further ado, Boy Green Daily starts now.
I'm going to lose my gosh darn bananas. Boy Green Daily starts now. Zoinks!
Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily. Let's go!
Put your seatbelts on. Get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Paul Eston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, also available wherever you get your podcast. I'm constantly on the move. You saw me in New York. You saw me in Vermont. Now, all of a sudden, I'm in New Hampshire, baby. You can see it right here, the Esden Zone Mountain Cabin. No Pop today. He's actually working out at the gym, working on those pythons. That's all right. But I got another special guest joining us. He joins us every Monday here on the show. He is one of the many draft professors of draftprofessor.com, baby. It is none other than Drew Beatty, a.k.a. Iron City Film on Twitter and X. What's up, Drew? Good morning.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing awesome, and let's again. We're 10 days away from the NFL draft. It's amazing. I can't wait. When you said that before the show, I'm like, holy shit! It's 10 days away from the NFL draft. It is snuck up on us a great deal. There's no question about it, and we're running out of time. And today and tomorrow, the last days, we'll start off with this for our draft giveaway, folks. If you want this, throw it up on the screen. The official Jets draft hat, the official Jets draft shirt this year. The movie Draft Day. You only have today and tomorrow to submit in your raffle tickets. They're $2.99 a pop. You can send in super chat questions for Drew. That's one way to get involved. Or buy a Boy Green Coffee Club membership in the YouTube description down below. Again, we only have 2 days, today and tomorrow, for you guys to have a chance to win this prize package with a estimated retail value of Price is Right style, somewhere around $100, and you can get a chance to win it for only $2.99. I like that math. So again, make sure you guys get involved, and let's give you a peek. Drew saw this before the show, but another thing that's coming up in 10 days, of course, is the draft, but we will be doing a massive 4+ hour live stream of the draft, and you guys are going to get a little bit of this action. Here is the debut. I wish I had some sort of a sound. What sound can I play here? Sure.
Draft time. There we go.
Well, there you go. As I'm trying to pluck a sound from the sky. That'll do her, baby. Here it is. This is going to be our 2025 Draft Spectacular, brought to you by our friends over at Homage. Shout out to Gator for putting this puppy together. Again, if you guys want your StreamYard backgrounds updated, it's for a good price. Make sure you go check out our boy Gator. We'll be talking about that. I'll flip it to the giraffe version to show all the Jets picks that'll be coming up here. So shout out to Gator. We will be doing a live 4-hour stream. And Drew, on top of all the million things he does, will include jumping on that show at some point during the first round. So can't wait for that, Drew. That'll be awesome.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be so much fun. I'm super excited.
All right, so what we're going to do today is talk about, or debunk potentially, a lot of these boom or bust prospects and what that ultimately means, and I'd love your definition of it as well, Drew. It seems like a lot of people are just kind of glossing over and putting a lot of stuff in buckets here, and it's just the risky prospects that could be awesome or terrible, that there's like a very low floor and a very high ceiling potential is how a lot of people describe that. Before we get into any prospects in particular, is that how you would basically categorize that, or what more would you say on this topic matter?
Yeah, so I think along with many things in the draft, boom or bust has been a definition that people have kind of taken and ran with that I don't necessarily fully agree with the definition anymore. So for me, boom or bust is a lot more about projection rather than, in like the modern draft media space, people have run with the fact that any player that is like really athletic, they automatically label them as raw or boom or bust, like you said. It just comes down to like somebody who tests really, really well and maybe wasn't the most productive. That's who that label goes to now. And for me, it's much more about what you were saying, like floor versus ceiling, and how much do you have to project their evaluation from what they did in college, what they're doing in the NFL. Like the Ole Miss guys, the first ones that come to mind, like where that Ole Miss or Tennessee offenses, for example, where those are so like the opposite of pro style, where you have to project their role so much to the next level. That's much more the boomer bust that I look at, where there's really no middle ground with a prospect. They're either going to be really good or they're out of the league in 2 years, versus a guy who is, just really athletic, but not the most productive in college. So I think it's much more about what their projected outcomes are going to be in the league rather than just traits to me.
Fair enough. Hey, by the way, Dade County McFly, baby, getting involved, getting himself a raffle ticket. And sure. Now, Drew, I'm going to continue to be perfectly honest. If I feel like I'm saying that, I guess I've been dishonest this entire time. So sorry, Drew. But I have no idea what the hell a super sticker is. But God bless you, Dade County McFly. You gifted it. So now you have a raffle ticket to our contest. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, pal. And we'll put that on the leaderboard. So thank you for your contributions. And you are officially in the running. And I suggest everyone that's watching the show at least submits one $2.99 raffle ticket, because you have a chance. And that's all you need, baby. But before we get to the big boomer bust list that you have prepared for us, Drew, we will go through those names. Let's talk about the one that's in. And thank you, Dade. Again, you're up on the leaderboard. Let's talk about the guy that is in the article in the YouTube description down below. There's a player that a lot of people have labeled boomer bust that the Jets have done a lot of homework on. According to ESPN's Rich Samini, the Jets have been, quote-unquote, keeping close tabs on pass rusher Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. They met at his pro day and have stayed in touch. Aaron Glenn, the Jets head coach, is a former Texas A&M star, and they've been, again, together talking and connecting over the draft. And a lot of Jet fans have now been trying to do a lot of research on Shamar Stewart, and they see the 4.5 sacks total in his career. They see he never had a single season of more than 1.5 sacks. They're like, pass rusher stats? What the hell? Who the hell is this guy? So give it to us here, because I see the pressures all look pretty impressive. You go to some of those numbers, but the sacks aren't there. Is he this boomer bust guy that he's been labeled as?
Yeah, so Shamar Stewart is definitely, he would have been first on my list because he's probably the most interesting prospect to talk about in this thing. And I would not call him a boomer bust personally, which I know is kind of shocking to hear, because you see a guy test, like a generational athlete at the position. Right. You saw him, like you said, only 4.5 sacks in college, never a season above 1.5. So he screams the definition of what most people use for boomer bust, right? But with Shamar Stewart, there's a lot to put in context. Now, the first thing I'll preface it with is that he absolutely has an issue finishing sacks. That's why partially why the sack numbers are so low. Like you said, the pressure numbers are good. He has a great job getting to the quarterback. He just kind of fails to finish when he gets in the backfield sometimes. So that's something he needs to improve on. But to me, the biggest limiter was that Mike Elko defense at Texas A&M, that scheme. And you saw that was an incredibly stacked defensive line. Like, you have Shamar Turner, who's going to be a borderline top 100 pick. You have Nick Skelton, who's been talked about as a borderline first-round pick. You have Shamar Stewart. You have Cassius Howell, who's going to get drafted next year pretty high. And then some more depth guys beyond that. Like, Texas A&M is routinely bringing in so much talent that there's a lot of rotation on that front. And for whatever reason, you have this 270-pound cyborg in Shamar Stewart. And for whatever reason, Mike Elko looked at this guy and said, this is going to be my 4-eye 5-tech, and he's only going to be a contained player for me. I'm never going to actually let him pin his ears back and rush the passer. So a lot of the times, Shamar Stewart was not actually asked to get to the quarterback. He was more supposed to be that clean up, set the edge, contained player. And he did a very good job of that. So like I said, the finishing needs to get better in the backfield, but a lot of times it was a byproduct of being misused in that scheme. But that's a lot of jargon, I know, to kind of dance around this topic. So him as an actual player, to me, the reason I don't see him as a boomer bust is because he's such a good run defender that he's always going to have a pretty high floor because of that. And by virtue of this, we can talk about Mike L. Stewart too, because they're very similar in this way. Both very, very raw as pass rushers, but great run defenders, great athletes, huge upside. So while he is very boomer bust as a pass rusher, I would say, overall as a prospect, I wouldn't label him that way, because he's always going to be a player you want on the field 100% of the time on first and second down, because he's one of the best run defenders in this whole class, going to be that 5-tech-ish position in the NFL. And the stack and shed is incredible. He's the anchor in the run game is damn near immovable. He's never getting flushed out of the play. So because of that floor as a run defender, I think he's always going to be a valuable player at some level. So overall, as a prospect, I wouldn't label him that way. But as a pass rusher, that's where you get into the boom or bust thing. Because I would agree in that vein. Because when it comes to Shamar Stewart, obviously we've all seen testing numbers, 10.0 RAS, so that's combine numbers we've ever seen. I think he's probably going to play closer to 270. I know he came in kind of lighter at the combine, played heavier, was the Senior Bowl weight was all over the place. The measurements this year have been a disaster because the Senior Bowl and the combine were so far apart.
Do you have any explanation for that? That's been wild.
I don't think anybody does. It's been one of the weirdest things to me. And this whole there's been rumors about scouts that got the measurements wrong at one of the two and didn't want to admit it. But there's really no confirmed solution from what I've seen. That's been a very, very strange part of this cycle.
Right.
But as a pass rusher, Shamar Stewart, the bend he has at that size is kind of incredible. Obviously, the burst, the explosion, the power he creates, all of the raw athletic tools are there as a pass rusher. But the hands are the raw part to me. The timing is super late. He really has no idea what he's doing with his hands as a pass rusher, which is so weird because he's great with his hands in run defense. He knows exactly what he's doing there. There's a very big discrepancy there. So if you can get this guy behind a coach that can really develop up the hand usage in his pass rushing arsenal, get him to string together some moves and create kind of a pass rushing plan, you're looking at a really dangerous pass rusher. But again, like I said, as an overall prospect, I think he's always going to have a mid-level floor because of that run defense.
Well, Jets fans would love the run defense because we've been awful in the pre-Aaron Glenn era over the last couple of years. You say a really dangerous pass rusher. I don't know if you could put a label on this. What is the ceiling for Shamar Stewart at the NFL level if he gets the right coaching to unlock that pass rushing inconsistency?
See, that's a good one that's a good question because I think we haven't really seen many people with the level of athleticism that Shamar Stewart has, with his measurables and everything.
Sure.
The first one you jump to for a lot of people is Trevon Walker because, you see the similar measurements where that guy went first overall because his combine was so crazy and he also had that 999 RAS, whatever it was. But I think Trevon Walker, even with the crazy athlete that he was not on the level of Shamar Stewart as a mover and as that explosion. And I think Shamar Stewart is bendier. So probably Trevon Walker with a little bit of extra speed to his game, I would say.
Interesting. Hey, Trayvon Walker's coming off a double-digit sack season. Sign me the hell up as far as I'm concerned, baby. So, interesting. All right, so let's dive in some names that may better fit that boomer bust category. In your opinion, Drew Beatty, our draft analyst, again, a draft professor from draftprofessors.com joining us. Who's a name on your list that more fits that category?
Yeah, so the two I'll start off with are actually two that I talked about last week when we were doing our prospects I'm lower on, or prospects for the Jets to avoid. And the first one I'll jump to is Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU, where he's been talked about in the Jet space a lot.
Very much so, yeah.
Getting closer to that top 50 second-round pick area. He's continued to climb so far on draft boards. And to me, with tight ends, Jackson Hawes out of Georgia Tech. I don't know if that name's been thrown around a lot.
No.
He's always going to have a crazy high floor because he's the best blocker in this class. And to me, Mason Taylor has the tools to be a great inline blocker, but he needs to be developed up there. One of the better athletes at tight end in this class, which, normally it's something I go for. And I consider myself an upside projection guy, but even these are somewhere I'm wary on because of, like I said, their offenses were so limited to their not translatable to what they're going to be doing at the NFL level, where there's so much projection involved that I'm hesitant on them. With Mason Taylor, that came in just an extremely limited route tree where they only let him run about 3 different routes, probably not routes he's going to be running a whole lot at the NFL level. He's very toolsy as a blocker. I think he has the lower body strength to become a good NFL run blocker, inline guy, but you have to develop him up there. Like I said, I think he's an explosive athlete, but you didn't really get to see him. Pretty much everything was a seam or a hitch, or every once in a while, if they got spicy, it was a corner route. But you never really get to see him work as a separator, especially against man coverage, and let alone press man, because the way that offense looked, the defensive fronts they faced, and they just never really asked him to run routes where you're going to get to see him, work as a salesman and as a route runner. So with Mason Taylor, I think he can be really, really good. The tools are there, the traits are there. But you're taking a complete shot in the dark to me because he was never asked to do anything at an NFL level at LSU. So that's why I would label him that way, because I don't know that I see a middle ground for him. I think it's probably either a starting caliber wide tight end within 1 to 2 years, or he's out of the league.
So you say that for Mason Taylor in particular, I see memberships, keep those flowing, baby. We'll address those in just a moment. But you say that, and again, I don't I don't disagree. You have a good pulse of what's going on here. Mason Taylor originally was talking about wherever he was talking about. Now he's like a top 50 lock by all draft analyst opinions. Again, Jordan Reed, he's the guy I bring up because I see him. He's pounded the table a lot for the Jets in that category. The Jets taking him at 42 seems like a locky thing. I'm like, whoa. Man, how did we get here? But my question to you is, where would be a more comfortable range if you were drafting? You're a general manager and you were intrigued by Mason Taylor. Sounds like 42 is too rich. Where would you be comfortable making that selection?
Yeah, so I noticed a theme really when I was putting this list together about these guys where they're really in these offenses, like the Mason Taylor and LSU, or like the Ole Miss guys or the Tennessee guys, where there's these guys that have the makings of a great NFL player. They have the athletic traits, but where there's all that projection involved. Not on purpose, but I noticed just a theme. Pretty much all these guys shook out as an early fourth round pick, early fourth round grade for me. Okay. So when if I'm a GM, you're looking on day 1 and 2, you need bona fide starters. And to me, you can start looking at guys where you're going to stash them and develop them up and get guys that you can afford to wait a year or two to be starters at the beginning of day 3 and into day 3, obviously. So for me, I would wait until like early day 3 to take a shot on these guys where you're really just, like I said, taking a shot in the dark because you don't have any real concrete evidence that these guys are going to be able to make that jump to the NFL level. So I probably wouldn't, in late day 2, early day 3, there's kind of a blurred line there, but I'd probably wait until like around the tail end of the top 100 for these guys.
What are the chances Mason Taylor actually gets taken in that range versus the aggressive top 50 stuff we've been hearing?
I seriously doubt it. I think that's real. He's probably going to be right around top 50. I'd be surprised to see him slip out of the top 50 at this point.
Unbelievable.
So I don't really know. Like, usually there's a reason these guys, there's one stark moment you can tell, like where they have a great pro day or a great combine or whatever it is that causes them to shoot up these draft boards. I don't really know where it started with Mason Taylor. He just kind of had this slow climb, which is kind of rare to see. And I don't really understand why it's happened, but I think that's probably where he goes now.
Fair enough. Let's get a membership in. J-Boy hitting us with it. JT out there in the audience. JT, you just received a Boy Green Coffee Club membership. Updated the leaderboard, J-Boy has now 68 raffle tickets for a contest, a 10 raffle ticket lead on our next closest companion. That's A-Step 10. They're in second place. J-Boy, thank you so much for the membership. I do want to address this before we go any further, because I've seen other people say this. So I mispronounced it Dade. I heard that it's Dade County McFly. My apologies, Dade. But he says, why are we talking to a Titans fan about the Jets? And I'm glad that this came up because, we see this beautiful Houston Oilers hat with the brand very much on point, this great Derrick Henry jersey behind you. And I've heard other people whisper this in the streets. Like, why are we talking to me personally? I prefer to talk to a person that's outside of our universe because different opinions are coming through. And, not to bottle Drew in this, but he's not just a Titans fan. He's a draft analyst for GashDarnDraftProfessor.com. So his own personal flavor of choice, I love that he represents it. I love that we live in a world where we don't have to hide that anymore, that you have to be an unbiased draft analyst. You can't say if you're a Jets fan, Titans fan, Bears fan, whatever. I love that we can just spill our cards on I'm wearing all my Jets gear right now, for God's sakes, as a Jets analyst. So I love that part of it. Want to put that out there. And I love bringing in different people from different universes in here to be able to talk. And I think Drew has more than proven, to me at least, his value and knowledge and everything else on this show, which has been riveting stuff. So not to trash on you, Dade, because I've heard other people say similar things, but that's a big piece of it to me. And Drew, I got to imagine that you do, obviously on this show, but beyond it, I imagine you do a lot more than just Titans content.
Absolutely, I do. I tend to, like on my Twitter especially, I tend to focus it a little bit more there because that's sure. Where a majority of my following has gone from. But that's a 100% fair concern. If I was watching a Titans show as a Titans fan and some guy comes on wearing a Jets hat or wearing a like a Giants hat or whatever it was, I would absolutely question why I'm doing that. And while I do want to represent, absolutely, like you said, I'm a draft fan first and foremost. The draft is where I live. The Titans are the team I root for on Sundays during the season. But the draft is my year-long focus. That's my profession. That is what I, put all my effort into. And also, if there's a fan to look at, like I've been looking at the draft since September because this team is so bad. So if there's anybody that you want talking about the draft, Titans fans probably not the worst fan base in the world. But yeah, that's a fully fair question. But I consider myself to be 110% objective all the time because I am the draft first. I don't ever let my allegiances to whatever team affect my draft coverage, but I fully understand why there would be hesitancy about a guy coming in in an Oilers hat with a Titans jersey behind him on a Jets show. So
I will just say that is hilarious. So with the number one pick, who has been looking at the draft more often than the Titans fan in the room? That's just a good point. And for people asking about Dom C, again, he got a job doing, which again is the dream for all of us, right? To get paid to do what we love. So shout out to Dom C. He got himself a new gig. Again, I don't know if he's made any of that public yet, but congratulations to him. Continue to send your guys' questions in about that. Here's just a random question, Drew, for you. FL Phil 98 says, just curious about Drew's hat. Does Tennessee Titans, like TennesseeTitans.com, do they sell Oilers merch, or do you got to get that behind some back alley?
They did, so when they brought back, when the Jets got there, when all the throwbacks happened, for the vintage stuff, the past 2 years, they did it, they sold it, and now since Tennessee has shifted their uniforms this year, for whatever reason, they've completely cut the Oilers back out, so now you can't again. I have no idea what's happening over there at Tennessee on multiple fronts. But yeah, the merch, it's been a weird, they don't want to use the Oilers, even though they're the best jerseys in sports history.
Yes.
Who knows?
They should, by the way, just absolutely go back completely.
Yes.
No offense to the Tennessee Titans. I mean, we were formerly the New York Titans.
Yep.
I mean, I would just do a complete wash, quite frankly,
100%.
as I was here. We have a YouTube super chat coming through, and every time we get one of those, oh boy, we hear from my daughters, Rylona. Wow. Taylor Sterling's been a member for 7 months on this channel. He says that hat is offensive. That is a Houston logo. Your reaction to that, Drew?
So every time this debate gets brought up between the Houston and who does the legacy belong to? First of all, he follows the franchise, not the city. Yeah. Like the Baltimore Colts. We don't see that follow them. They were the Tennessee Oilers in 1997 in Nashville. So the Oilers were a Tennessee team for 1 year before they became the Titans. I just like to remind everybody of that 1997 season. So.
Okay, boom. I'm glad that we were able to clear that up. So thank you, everybody, for that. All right, again, keep the memberships and raffle tickets coming through. Again, you got just today and tomorrow to submit those to have a chance to win that wonderful Jets draft prize bag. A lot of action happened there. That will reveal that winner coming up on Wednesday. And Batshot saying, do they sell New York Titans gear? I imagine I got a few New York Titans gear back from 1960 to 1962.
There we go.
Some good action happening there as well. All right, who's another boom or bust guy that made the list?
Yeah, so very much in the same vein as Mason Taylor, another guy who we've talked about last week, and another guy who's been talked about with the Jets. With their second round pick is Trey Harris out of Ole Miss.
Yes.
And Trey Harris fits this bill pretty well on both sides because he is that guy with the big athletic traits. He's a very good mover at 6'3", 215 pounds. Incredibly strong player. But to me, and this is, you could throw Jackson Dart in this bucket. You can throw Antoine Wells, the other receiver, because, we look back and I don't ever want to be a helmet scout. You scout the player, not the helmet. But since Lane Kiffin has taken over at Ole Miss, you have not seen a successful skill player come out of that offense. You've seen Matt Corral, you've seen Elijah Moore, you've seen, all of those. Yeah, I know that's a sore subject here as well. But it's because there is so much projection involved with that offense, because everything in that offense is, the Pee Wee level 1 read, RPO, and again, you don't ever fault Lane Kiffin for it because his job is to win football games, and that works at the college level. It's not to be a farm league for the NFL, but it makes evaluation very, very difficult because these guys are never asked to do anything in an NFL level, again, especially at quarterback. But it slips into the receivers as well, because these receivers aren't asked to run route trees. You have Trey Harris, you have this 6'3", 215 guy with great long speed on the outside, very strong with the ball in his hands. But they never asked him to run anything past a 4-yard hitch. That in Tennessee does the same thing. But there was virtually zero route tree with Trey Harris. And that's the difficult part to me is, again, I watched his entire season before we went on the show last week to make sure that I still had the same views of him. And he faced 4 man coverage reps four press man coverage reps the entire year. And out of all 4 of those press man coverage reps the entire season, none of them were actual press reps. They were all bump and run. Everybody bailed. And along with that, only seeing 4 reps, I probably only saw maybe 15-ish man coverage reps the entire year because they face that much zone. So very much in the same vein as Mason Taylor, you just never saw Trey Harris have to separate. You don't know how he beats press, so you don't know how he can find success on the outside of the NFL level. You don't know what kind of separator he is. You don't know what his footwork looks like at the line of scrimmage. So again, this is a guy who's really good at the catch point, very physical, great with the ball in his hands, nice yak threat, good athlete. but it is just a really scary thing for me to take a risk like that on early to mid day two for a guy you've never seen have to beat man coverage.
I love that because you used the same word I was going to use. Man, is that scary when you're making that kind of projection. You have no freaking. You can bring him in your facility on a top 30 visit, and you can have some schmo that's lined up across from him. But there's no way you can replicate the actual bullets that'll be flying at the NFL. So it's a total projection. Because, let's say you have this vision for him, you bring him in, they get smacked around the NFL, and you're immediately like, oh boy. He can't, and then it's too late. The bullet is fired from that perspective. I love that call out. And look at this. Hep baby has punched his own ticket to the Boy Green Coffee Club. Hep has finally joined us on the Boy Green Coffee Club officially. He's been a legend on this show. We appreciate you, Hep. So thank you kindly, my man. And we'll just do this real quick for you. Give you a little bit of this action for you. Here you go.
Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily.
There you go, Hep. Love it. That is the guy that plays that guitar, baby. A important piece of this very foundation. And now you have a raffle ticket, Hep, for the contest. I keep telling you guys, get in those raffle tickets, baby. He said, I figured it out. And that's hope for anyone. If I can do it, anyone can. Again, it's in the YouTube description for those less technologically savvy. I've tried to make it as simple as possible. Literally, you go in the YouTube description of any video, join the Boy Green Coffee Club by clicking this button. Boop. It's just, you want to join? Boop. And then all of a sudden, boom, it happened. So, like I said, I've tried to make it as easy for everyone. And, hey, if Hep can do it, you can. I'll put that on the next poster. Thanks, Hep. Anywho, let's get some more action in here, Drew. I love that call out on Trey. Who else do we got on the list?
Yes, jump back to the same type of debate we were doing with Shamar Stewart. There's another guy I wanted to jump on who's been probably the biggest label of boomer bust in this draft, and one of my biggest guys. I've written articles about him. I'm a huge fan of his and why I think people really misunderstand him. And back to the overall philosophical debate of boomer bust. When you look at a league that moves as fast as the NFL does, you always hear guys talk about the transition in game speed, right? Everything moves so much faster at the NFL level. And the opposite of boomer bust, you hear the pro ready label get thrown around, guys that are ready to come and start for an NFL game week one. I think another thing we've kind of got mixed up there is where I think the guys that they have these crazy athletic traits are the ones that are more pro ready than versus a guy that's incredibly smart, or like quarterbacks are the ones we always jump to, like guys that are good in structure and can read a defense, can process. When you're talking about going against these world-class athletes, the guys that can run really fast and are really strong and jump really high are going to be the ones that have a higher floor coming into this league immediately than guys who have to adjust to the game speed, guys who have made their money off of working in structure and being on time. That's going to have more of an adjustment period. These guys that are just great athletes, that's going to translate more to day one. These guys are going to be able to fall back on those traits and be more pro-ready day one. That's another definition I think we've gotten kind of flipped over the years. And to me, that screams Savion Williams out of TCU, the receiver. And I don't know the Jets would be super interested in him because they got Malachi Corley, last year, 2 years ago?
Last year.
Yeah. And I do think, unfortunately, the NFL sees Savion Williams as this gadget guy that he was used at TCU, and they're going to plug him into that Malachi Corley, that Deebo Samuel role, which I think is a tragic waste.
Which shout out to Ricky, by the way, before the show even started, he threw this one out there as a boomer buzz. So Ricky's on the pulse.
Yeah, and I think if the NFL plays him as a gadget player, he is going to be very boomer bust. But to me, I think that's a tragic waste of him as a receiver, because I think if you just let in very few and far between, but the few reps where TCU actually let him play a true X receiver role, he was outstanding every single time. So again, I think I don't know that the NFL is necessarily smart enough to look through that because we give them too much credit sometimes. I think they're going to see him used as a gadget guy and immediately plug him in that way at the next level. But if you just let this guy play X receiver, he is outstanding. I mean, unreal movement skills at 6'4", 220. This guy is one of the fastest players, most explosive players in this draft class. Obviously incredible after the catch, but he's one of the better separators in this class too. And people call him that raw and boomer bust label, but this guy's footwork is some of the best in his class. He's incredibly developed and nuanced as a separator. He understands leverages at the catch point as well, like 88.9% contested catch rating for PFF in 2024. Like that is unheard of. He flashes his hands late, knows how to use that big frame at the catch point. This guy has the makings of all of the makings of an NFL level X receiver who can be really, really good. The only question to me is, does the NFL let him play it? So again, I think if the NFL pencils him in immediately, like I'm afraid they will, as this gadget guy who just going to use him as that Cordell Patterson that everybody keeps comping him to, I think there is a very boomer bust label on him. But if you just let him play receiver, I think there's a much higher floor, and I think there's a much higher ceiling. And to me, the comp has always been Adonai Mitchell from last year out of Texas, rather than
interesting.
Cordell Patterson.
Texas kid, right? Yeah,
put him to, because Cordell Patterson was never the receiver that Savion Williams is. So that's one where I think people have really misunderstood what he is, because I think if you just let him play as a true X receiver, he's a much, much different prospect than how people are looking at him right now.
Fair enough. Let's get another random super chat in here. Oh boy, this is a dick move.
Wow.
Jersey Jet, a member for 6 months, a member of the Boy Green Coffee Club. Titans over Oilers, reason for the Music City miracle. For all the Bills fans that may be listening in, this is a very tender topic, I'd imagine, Drew.
Yeah. I unfortunately wasn't around to see that one in person, see it happen. That was a little bit before my time, but that was an awesome moment. But to me, yeah, I really wish, like what you were saying, they just fully lean into this rebrand to the Oilers.
That would be amazing, man. I just don't understand.
There's rumblings about, they got that new stadium opening in 2026. There's rumors about a rebrand, a full-on overhaul of the uniforms. We're hoping that it's back to this. We'll see.
Okay. Again, I just feel like they would sell like hotcakes. I think even if you're not a Titans fan, I know there's a lot of people in my universe that just wear jerseys they think are cool, right? Regardless of the team. Come on, Houston Oilers. How is that not on the bleeping list, baby? So we'll keep an eye out for that. Could be a whole new brand or old brand, however that would work, for the Houston Oilers / Tennessee Titans. I hope they do it. Another member to the Boy Green Coffee Club hitting the re-sign button in the YouTube description down below. James Bowles, welcome back to the club, baby. You're a member of the Boy Green Coffee Club. Got yourself a raffle ticket. You're a member to our YouTube group, which, again, like I said, everybody, for those who don't know, that is how you can get a raffle ticket. It may be the easiest way to get a raffle ticket, quite frankly, because you get all the perks of being a Boy Green Coffee Club member. You get to join our Discord, and you get a raffle ticket to win all those Jets draft prize packs, baby. So continue to jump on that train again today and tomorrow. Continue to do it, baby. All righty. Let's keep going on this Houston Oilers train. This has been a lot of fun. 2-2. Who's next?
Yeah, so the next two guys I have on the list have been pretty polarizing players throughout this whole draft cycle. And the first one to me is going to be Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle.
Oh, my goodness, yes. I had him on the YouTube thumbnail, so let's go.
Yep. Yeah. Walter Nolan to me, and he's a boomer bust for a couple of different reasons. Because I think, you can talk about boomer bust guys for on the field reasons, but I think for just as much as you have that, there's a lot of boomer bust with guys that have medical concerns or that have, character concerns and off the field issues. So to me, Walter Nolan is kind of a blend of all three. Or I guess he doesn't have like the biggest medical concerns, so it's really more just the other two. But to me, Walter Nolan, the biggest problem with me is he's incredibly inconsistent. You'll have 3 games where Walter Nolan looks like this top 5 pick, white hot motor, wins with speed while being in a massive frame, incredible run defender, taking up 2 gaps at once, immovable anchor in the run game. He's got great hands as a pass rusher. And he's just basically unblockable. In like the Florida game and the LSU game coming to mind, where he's just like unstoppable. And then you'll see a 3 to 4 game stretch where he disappears completely and he looks like a UDFA. And to me, that's extremely concerning because you're betting on a very spotty, streaky, inconsistent ceiling, and a guy where you'll have 3 games of really, really good production, and then another 4 to 5 games of basically disappearing off the box score, which to me is extremely concerning. You compound that with the fact that he's been to 6 different schools in 7 years. That's always the biggest shock when you talk about Walter Nolan. There's been, NFL teams are pretty unhappy with him for the stunts he's pulled so far at the combine. Teams showed up expecting him to test, and at the very last minute, he pulled out and decided not to do the test at the combine, which left a bad taste in a lot of NFL executives' mouth. So the mix of the character concerns, because you've heard there's, does he love football? A lot of people saying he doesn't, not something he wants to do with his life. So you mix in the love of football concerns, the character concerns, the 6 different schools in 7 years, along with the on-the-field inconsistencies. Walter Nolan, to me, despite how much physical talent there is with him, is somebody who I can't get with the top 15, top 20 talk, because I think there is so much risk involved with that draft, especially with where he's going to go. So that's somebody that I would probably stay away from if I was a GM.
So I was just watching this because I had a lot of driving as I'm moving from location to location. And one of the things I enjoy catching up on is podcast. And the Jets do this special that ends up going on television on CBS Sports locally and things of that nature. It's like a 20-minute show when you check out all the commercials. And Leger Deuce, former Jets player, he's now an SNY television analyst, and he does college football play-by-play and all these other things. A former defensive lineman in the NFL for 10 years. God bless to Leger. He is perhaps the biggest Walter Nolan fan I know on the planet, and he has him as the second-ranked defensive tackle behind Mason Graham. Your reaction to that is what?
And I fully get it, because like if you again as draft evaluators, we have like you only get 3 games of these guys before you have to move on to the next one, because we have to get through 250, 300 plus players. Like we're all people with jobs and schedules. We're on time crunch during draft season to really get through these guys. So unfortunately, most of us don't have the luxury of watching a whole season of a guy, except for a few prospects where you're like really interested in the guy. Yeah. So if you just watch the 3 games of Walter Nolan where he's Jesus Christ in shoulder pads of just like unblockable in the A gap, it makes sense. This looks like a top 10 player in the class. But then if you were to watch the 4 or 5 games where he's just completely disappeared and not active at all, you think he was a day 3 guy. So that's why I think you can see a lot of variance, because people, we only have time to watch a couple of games. So watching the right games matters a lot. So like I said, when you watch this guy, when he's white hot, he looks like a top 10 player in his class. But at the same time, you watch another game and he's a day 3 guy. So when there's that much variance, that's why that scares me. But I fully understand why people have him that high, because the ceiling is there. He has so much talent.
Fair enough. We have 400 people in the room. Make sure you guys like the video, hit subscribe, baby. Show your support. Drew Beatty joins us every Monday. And again, as you see with this brand new background for those watching on YouTube, the 2025 NFL Draft Boy Green Spectacular, baby. Drew will be on that live show as well with former players, current players, analysts, insiders. It's going to be a really fun show. So continue to show your support. And we're getting more support in the comment section, baby, with another membership. Hansen just gifted a Boy Green Coffee Club membership. Thanks, Hansen. That went to Hennessy Heisman, our good old boy, in the comments section. So that's a raffle ticket on the big board there for Hansen. Continue to send those in. I feel like we're on the verge of it raining from the high heavens with some massive raffle tickets with Boy Green Coffee Club memberships being gifted. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the money sign. The final option is gift channel memberships. You guys can gift as many as you'd like. There's no limit on the raffle ticket, so make it rain, baby, and let's keep it rolling. Yeah, Walter Nolan was one I definitely had to put on the big board list, especially after hearing that yesterday and putting together the YouTube thumbnail early this morning. All right, who's next on the hit list?
For sure. I got about 3 more like big names, and then I got 2 more kind of smaller day 3 guys. I don't talk about as much that I'll throw on there.
Yeah.
This next one's going to be Jalen Milroe, the QB we've all talked about a million times. And he fits, my definition and the traditional label of very toolsy, athletic guy. Because I think that line is kind of blurred at the quarterback position. It's obviously very different than everything else. And with Jalen Milroe, again, I'm from Alabama. They're born and raised Alabama fan. I've watched every snap Milroe's ever taken.
Okay, wow, great insight.
And the most frustrating player I've ever watched in all of my years, because you look at this guy and he's a 4.2 athlete. I know he ran like a 4.45, whatever it was. The pro day numbers are garbage this year. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
But like you watch him on tape and he's a 4.2 guy. Like at 230 pounds, he's never seen a pursuit angle. He's not going to torch. So as a runner, the most gifted athlete at quarterback I've ever seen in all my years. He's got a rocket arm, probably the best arm in this whole class, as well as being the best athlete, like mobility-wise, that I've ever watched at quarterback, the best runner at quarterback. The ball just effortlessly flies out of his hand. I mean, that ball, it's like an MLB pitcher. I mean, that ball comes out of his hand going 120 miles an hour. It is a knuckleball. But despite all of that, every other facet of quarterback play is a disaster. Except for accuracy. Accuracy's been kind of hit and miss. Not necessarily something he struggled with all the time. You kind of saw it begin to be an issue at the tail end of 2024, which is concerning. You don't ever want your most recent tape to be your worst. That's another thing, like Deion Walker, another tangent that scares me because his 2023 tape was awesome. 2024 was not. So that scares me away. But Milroe, he was much, much better at the beginning of this year. Like you saw that stretch from Wisconsin, Georgia, and Vanderbilt. Those 3 games, he looked like a first-round pick, bona fide top QB prospect. He was awesome in those games. And then you hit the Tennessee and South Carolina games, and it fell off a cliff. He looked like a UDFA. He couldn't play. There were accuracy issues. The turnover problems were disgusting. The biggest problem to me is the pocket issues. Right there with Shedeur Sanders, we're having just catastrophic pocket presence. I mean, the internal clock is a sundial. He has no idea when to get rid of the ball. He has no feel for pressure. It's like he never developed object permanence. It's like a toddler. As soon as a speed rusher goes out of his field of view, it's like he doesn't think they're there anymore. So he has no feel for pocket depth, how far he's drifted back. He tries to escape out the back of the pocket. Every facet of pocket presence is a problem. The turnover problems are there. He can't process. Being in a Kalen DeBoer offense in 2024, he was asked to do a lot of working through progressions to the backside, and he has a really, really hard time getting past his first or second read. So for me, this is a guy you're probably locking yourself into a 2 to 3 year project, like a guy that needs to sit back and fully redevelop all of his mental mechanics. But
is it possible? Is it possible to do that, do you think? Because obviously teams are going to be intrigued, because, right, teams, it's like a raccoon with a shiny object. They're going to see and hear everything you just said and go, oh, well, we could be the one to save him. We could be the one to save him. But is it possible?
I don't ever want to say that anything is impossible when it comes to that, because, like I said, the athletic, like, you could bring this guy in to just be like a running threat at quarterback, and he would still find success because he's that athletic. But I just, the mental issues are going to be so difficult to overcome that I wouldn't take the bet as a GM personally, but I don't want to say it's impossible. Also, because he's such an incredible person and such a coachable player. Like, this is a guy that got a master's degree in 4 years. He was, at multiple academic awards. He's a extremely smart and coachable and awesome presence in the locker room. So that makes you feel a little bit better about taking that chance. But this is going to be like, you're probably not going to see this guy start or be at a starting caliber level if he ever gets there until the very end of his rookie deal. In my opinion, that this is a guy that I'm hesitant on to take that chance on, but one of the most gifted, like, physical athletes that I've ever watched.
And to revisit, I can't remember which week it was because you've joined us for many weeks now, but we talked about Jalen Milroe. It might have been last week. Do you still believe, again, for those who missed it, quarterback Alabama Jalen Milroe was invited to the NFL draft and accepted it? And according to NFL insider Jordan Schultz, there's expected to be somewhere in the ballpark of 8 to 12 people that are going to be at this draft, and that Jalen Milroe is one of that very select few. Have people going, zoinks? Does that mean what I think it means? Do you still believe he goes in the first round on that?
Yeah, the closer we get to this thing, like you said, being 10 days out, I am pretty confident, unfortunately, there's going to be 4 quarterbacks taken in this first round.
Wow.
I think both Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, Shedeur, and Cam Ward.
Okay.
I think both Dart and Milroe are going to be picks, first-round picks in the late teens through the 20s. Which I think just speaks to the desperation of NFL teams.
Of course, right.
Because this, like, I would not draft a quarterback who's not named Cam Ward in this draft class. It's not been a fun year to watch quarterbacks. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I could imagine. All right, we're in the middle of Boomer or Bust, but I always appreciate when people send in super chat questions. So, guys, you can always send those in. So we have a super chat coming up here. So let's bless it with the only way we know how to bless them right here on the program.
Wow.
And before we ask this question, Ace has paid $2. Thank you so much. You're $1 away from a raffle ticket, so just keep that in mind. You can only send that in today and tomorrow to get it for the draft prize pack. So if you want to send that in later, just let us know. But the question from Ace of Spade is, thank you so much, what about defensive tackle Tyleik Williams? What's your take? This has been a very popular Jets mock draft pick.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. I don't think I've gotten the chance to talk about him yet in the 3 or 4 weeks I've been on this show.
Yeah.
But he's probably one of my favorite options for the Jets at that 42,
great.
that second-round pick. I love Tyleik Williams. He started off really high for me, and I think you got that kind of prospect fatigue as well as some other defensive tackles just really taking over in 2024. But Tyleik Williams is awesome. I mean, he's a good athlete. If it wasn't for Alfred Collins being like a generational run defender at defensive tackle, Tyleik Williams would be talked about as the best run stopper at defensive tackle in this class. Super active hands, moves extremely well in that massive 330-pound frame. Got a lot of pass rushing upside that doesn't really get talked about. I mean, hammers for hands is always the thing I use. Kind of the windmill hands that people talk about where guys just really can't lay a finger on him. Immovable anchor in run defense. So strong, knows how to knife through double teams, can use his hands like that. Very athletic at his size. So I think Tyleik Williams is a guy that's really kind of fallen far for something out of his control. He's still got really good tape. He's a second-round grade for me, and that's one of my favorite options for the Jets in second round. I think he'd pair extremely well with Quinnen Williams.
Fingers crossed. Let's see if he can last to 42. There are varying opinions on whether or not he will actually be able to. But, hey, as I always say, agents say 1,000 players are going in the first round, but from what I've been told, it's still 32. So we'll see how the math works out on draft day. Again, 10 days out from the first round of the 2025 NFL draft. If you guys continue to have super chat questions, we'll also open up the phone lines in a little bit. You can continue to send those in. Let's go through some more names on your boomer bust.
Yep. So the next one is another guy that's been talked about a lot for the Jets at tight end, and that's going to be Elijah Arroyo out of Miami.
Yes.
And this hurts me to throw him on this list because Elijah Arroyo has been one of my one of the earliest guys I got to in the cycle because of Cam Ward. Has been one of my favorites. Like, his tape is so much fun. He's such a great player, and it really has nothing to do with his on the field play to be on this list. It's purely because the knee is so bad. This knee injury and lower body injuries in general have plagued him every single year throughout his whole thing. He got injured again at the Senior Bowl. So you saw one healthy year out of his entire collegiate career, and then again, compound Senior Bowl injury with that, which is why he didn't test in Indianapolis. There is just like a catastrophic history of lower body injuries that are seriously debilitating with this guy. And to my knowledge, there's not anything degenerative yet, but when you have this long of a medical history, that's typically where things point to. So if Elijah Arroyo can stay healthy, and that's an incredibly big if, probably the biggest if in this entire class, I think he's outstanding as a tight end. Really rare long speed. He's a track athlete at tight end. You don't ever see him get tracked down from behind. Great separator, one of the better blockers in this class. Great at the catch point. He's really good at every facet of inline tight end. It's just the lower body injury history is so scary that I think you're going to see him slip a long way.
I'm glad that we've gone through a lot of the different types of boomer bust, because it's not as binary as it seems, where it's just boom or bust, and it's solely these reasons or these reasons. There's medical, there's character, there's again a million possible things of limited production college, right? The Shamar Stewart, and then projecting that to the next level. Some people have said for categorizing him in that way, and that's the guy that. Bubba Bad Shot, our comment section, has said he is Elijah Rutrow, the Scooby-Doo reference. And now, ever since he said pretty that, much. I can now no longer get that out of my head. So thank you, Bad Shot, for instead of Elijah Arroyo, I get Elijah Rutrow. So thank you so much for that. God bless. Yeah. And hopefully, Drew, you've been infected now in the same way, so I can spread that disease. Yeah. Okay, exactly. Great. To everyone. Shout out to A Step 10. What up, BG in the Coffee Club? Drew, what up, dog? Okay, there you go. A Step 10. You're second in our raffle ticket prizes. Your 10 raffle tickets off of the leaderboard here of J-Boy. Appreciate all your support this month, my friend. Thank you so much. We got a few more boomer busts to get to before we open up the phone lines. What's next here, Drew?
Yeah, so my next and last big name for these boomer busts is going to be Princely Umanmielen, the edge rusher out of Ole Miss. And I think with him, it's kind of the inverse of the Shamar Stewart conversation, where you had a guy that was pretty productive in college, and he has very, very high pass rushing ceiling. But I think this guy's floor is incredibly low, purely because you really can't have him on the field on rundowns. He's that bad as a run defender at setting the edge. He gets washed out of plays constantly. The hands, I think there's some effort issues, to be honest with you, on tape. I think a lot of times he quits. And you saw a lot of that at Florida. There's some character concerns there. He tried to fight people. There's that infamous video of him fighting a guy in uniform, leaving the stadium. Which again, it was incited. The fan was not clean by any means. But you've seen some effort issues with this guy on tape. You've seen some locker room concerns with him. And again, very poor run defender. But as a pass rusher, like, the ceiling is high because this guy, he's a great athlete. He bends extremely well. Like the term I always use for guys that bend like this, like Donovan Ezraku out of Boston College. I love him. Like the motorcycle lean. Like you've seen like the motorcycle circuit guys bend around a corner where they get so low to the ground. Like that's what these guys look like. Where they get close to running like horizontally around these tackles. It's crazy. I don't know how the human body does it. But these guys he's got great bend. Got one of the best first steps in this class. Like the amount of ground he covers out of his stance. That first step is crazy. Like he's halfway behind the tackle by the time they're getting out of their kick step. So he's crazy good there. The best inside spin in this class is lethal. Like he kills guys with that inside spin. But again, another reason I think he's kind of boom or bust is because there's no variance as a pass rusher. Like he's got the bend, he's got the dip and rep, and he's got the spin, but there's really nothing beyond that. So if he gets shut down with those three moves, he doesn't have anything to go to. No real variance in his pass rushing game. And when you compound that with the effort issues and the lack of run defense, where he's probably going to have to be a designated pass rusher, a guy you only put on the field on third downs and long passing downs in his early career. This is a guy that I think can be a really strong contributor to an edge rotation, but there's a very, very high bust potential with Princely, in my opinion.
Yeah, the effort thing scares the bejesus. Again, there's a lot of things, right? Elijah Arroyo, love the player, but boy, the injury. If you just draft him and the injuries just continue, you just feel terrible. You're like, it was all there as red flag, warning, warning, something like this, right? You see the moments on tape where it seems like a little lackadaisical, like, I'm good, and not consistent 100% effort. And then you get that in the effort, like, oh, we saw that on tape, and we just thought that, like, we could fix it, and you can't. So, yeah, some of that stuff really gives me the heebie-jeebies. And now you said you have some relatively lesser names here in the boomer bust category.
Two smaller name guys that I want to give a shout out to. One that I'm much higher on in the consensus, and one that I'm much lower on.
Okay.
I'll start with the lower. I'll give the bad news first. Dylan Sampson, Tennessee running back.
Yes. Yep.
This is a guy that we talked briefly last week about the Jets being in the running back market. Whether or not you see the future with Breece Hall, you get another guy to be your 1A, 1B with Braylon Allen after you're looking ahead past the Breece Hall's contract year. And this is the year to do it because there's like 30 plus draftable running backs this year. It's crazy. But Dylan Sampson is one that people have talked about as like an early day 2 guy, mid to early day 2 guy, because he was, I call these guys track athletes when they're like great long speed. He actually was a former track star in high school.
There you go.
We have a couple of those in this running back class. And you see it, like it jumps off the tape quick. His athleticism is top tier. He makes the fast guys look slow. Like he's streaking past these guys in the field. But to me, when I grade a running back, the most important thing to me is vision, because I think vision is the one thing you're going to have that translates no matter what. It is the most important thing to success as a runner in the NFL level, in my opinion. That's why I don't like RJ Harvey. That's why I'm lower on Dylan Sampson. It's why I'm a lot lower on Quinshon Judkins than most people.
Interesting. Okay.
He's like a late 5th round grade for me. People have him
Oh
as like the RB5.
God.
He's my RB15. So Quinshon Judkins is a much longer conversation for me. But Dylan Sampson, the thing that worries me, along with just having bad eyes, undisciplined eyes, he doesn't read the correct lanes. He struggles to get off his point of contact sometimes, or then sometimes he'll have the inverse where he gets off his point of contact too quick and he'll just bail to somewhere that isn't there either. So you have pretty much all the vision problems with Dylan Sampson. And it's compounded being worse in that Tennessee offense because what Tennessee's infamous for is having these crazy spread out formations in college where they have guys as far to the boundaries you can get them. They're spreading defenses out like crazy purely to make it easier to run the ball between the tackles. And with that, you have, makes the running back's job incredibly easy because you're going to have wide open holes, super easy to read lanes. And Dylan Sampson still could not get it through his head to read the correct lanes. And that worries me. Again, the ceiling is so high because the athleticism is such a great trait with him. But when the eyes are so bad, I have a hard time taking a risk on running backs that don't quite have the vision you want, because I think that's the one trait that translates through every level of football as a runner.
I'll try not to take that personally as someone who wears glasses, that you have apparently a thing against people with vision impaired. So I'll try not to take that personally, Drew, as we're moving forward here. But I totally understand. Yeah, Dylan Sampson is on the hate list. All right, give me one more name. You have one more name?
Last name, guy that I love, is being talked about kind of as a 6th round, late 5th round guy. I have him as like a 3rd round guy. I love this guy. It is a offensive tackle out of Rutgers, Holland Pierce. Guy who kind of showed out at the Shrine Bowl, and like generational size at this position. 6'8", 350 pounds, and 37-inch arms. This guy has the wingspan of a pterodactyl. It's crazy. I mean, you could hug a skyscraper. It's the length and the frame at this position is something that you saw it maybe in DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State a couple of years ago.
Yes,
he's even longer than DeJuan Jones was. So the length you see there, compounded with his athleticism, like this guy is someone being at 6'8", 350 pounds. Like that is you don't get bigger than that on an NFL field. And he still is one of the best movers at tackle in this class. He'll get out in space and track defensive backs, and he'll consistently get the outside shoulder on reach blocks. And part of that is because he's so long and the frame is so crazy, but it's because his footwork is great. Now there are some pocket range and depth issues that are going to come with being 350 pounds. Like he loses to speed around the corner sometimes because he's that big. But when you're that long, that helps, lessen that issue. At a certain point. Obviously the power is undeniable at 350 pounds. He's driving guys completely out of the play to the Gatorade coolers on run blocks. The anchor is immovable. He's not going to get bull rushed. I think he does let guys into his frame a little bit too much sometimes. But that's something that can be worked on. The hand usage can be kind of refined and polished up a little bit, but I don't think it's terrible. But I do think he comes across as a little bit more of a raw prospect at that size and that athletic level. Goodness gracious, I can't talk. So with those traits and that size, the ceiling is incredibly high for Holland Pierce, in my opinion. Now, if you can't polish up the hand usage and work on the pocket depth a little bit, I think that's a guy that has a pretty low ceiling. Another guy that's just kind of fizzle out despite being the massive frame. But Holland Pierce has a much higher ceiling than anybody's talking about with him. I think he can be a bookend tackle if you develop him right for the next decade.
Beautiful. Boom or bust. I love that we're evaluating these themes. Again, we're going to be running out of theme time because the draft is going to be right upon us. But yeah. I love us diving into this. So, Drew, thank you for bringing us through the boom or bust players that actually fit the label or the ones that are accused of the label. And you have served as the defendant in the courts, in the court case of trying to crack this as well. So, without further ado, we will open up the phone lines. You could give all of your takes about, Drew's draftness or his ability to wear Houston Oilers hats for a Tennessee Titans team. All of that is fair game. The phone line opens next. Thank you to the 500 people that are currently watching. Like the video, hit subscribe. We're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. If you're on Facebook or Twitter, which we appreciate, by the way, you have to hop on over to YouTube if you want to call into the show, and also so you can send in your gifts for your final chance at raffle tickets over the next 2 days. Without further ado, quick song, and Boy Green Daily continues after this.
Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily. Talking Jets football, man. Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily. New York Jets Football Club. Offense, defense, special teams, watch Jets football with Boy Green. J-E-T-S, Jets. Let's go.
I can confirm. Yo Home says the Hep song always smacks you. Damn straight it does. And Hep is now officially a member of the Boy Green Coffee Club. He's always been a part of the family, but now it's official with a loyalty badge there as well. Join the Boy Green Coffee Club in the YouTube description down below. If you'd like to call into today's show, youtube.com/boygreen25 is the place to do it as we're talking all things draft here with Drew. Drew, you mentioned that all of us, specifically you draft analysts, only have such a limited amount of time to study these prospects. You can only have a handful of games on each guy because if you don't, then you're going to be studying less players overall because obviously you're spending too much time on particular prospects. So what does your schedule look like now, 10 days out of the draft right now?
Yeah, now there's kind of a weird lull, and especially weird for me as a college student. Like I'm at finals week right now, so you compound finals week coming along with the draft right here. It's like I'm on 2 hours of sleep every single day. It's crazy. You're trying to finish out, like wrap up late, guys you haven't hit. You want to compound guys that you need to go back to. So you're kind of scrambling, but you're also at like this weird lull where you're like kind of done. You can't do any like actual like a significant amount of work between now and the draft.
Right.
So at this point, you're kind of going back, finishing up details, dotting I's, crossing T's on your draft board, getting ready for this. Obviously, again, for me, finals week taking up a lot of that time. But
right.
Yeah, at this point, you're like your legwork is done. You're just kind of trying to finish up whatever it is you haven't. There's no amount of significant work you can get done in the next 10 days. So you're really just trying to finish up, clean up any things you haven't hit on your draft board yet.
No, fair enough. It's good to get an insight on the schedule and finals. Good Lord have mercy. I don't miss those. I'm too old now for any of that, so glad younger people are handling all of that business. Let's go to the phone lines. Again, this guy hit the nail on the head before the show even started with his Savion take before the program, putting him on the boom or bust label, and that's exactly where Drew tried to debunk in that way here on the program. Let's go to the phone lines. Ricky, New York, joins us here on the program. Good morning, Ricky.
How's it going, Paul, Drew? Yeah, man, I was really hoping that Savion would be one of your guys because just with, the threat that Justin Fields is to run, to have a weapon like that to put even more stress on a defense would be a nightmare. And at one point, I had taken him off my board for the Jets, but now knowing the kind of offense we're running, I put him right back on there because I think he's got to go to the right team, the right scheme, to get used properly. But yeah, absolutely love that pick. And another guy that I want to mention to you I don't know if I could call him like boomer bust. It's more like boomer okay, because I can't really see him being a bust. Is defensive tackle JJ Pegues.
Yeah, JJ Pegues is an interesting one because I honestly I kind of like him better as that like fullback flex option they used on offense more than I like him at defensive tackle. I think for him his biggest struggle is just going to be that he was a very very limited athlete. I don't know that he is an NFL caliber athlete at that position. I think he's very technically advanced with his hands. Like he has a good cross shot, which is pretty rare you see on the inside. So I think the hands are good, and I think he's a bigger body, so he helps take up some gaps in the run defense. But I do wonder if he has the athleticism to really translate as a interior rotational guy at the NFL level.
Right. I mean, I'm not talking about like using a high pick on him, but in the fifth round, if he was there, I could totally see us taking it to have some depth. I did like it once in a while when they would slide him out the end and he would blow up a tight end because he's got the size to do it. And being a former tight end himself, like, that'd be so weird, like to, give him like the Jumbo Elliott pass or something, or line him up like you said. I mean, yeah, line him up in the Wildcat. He had like 8 carries, 4 were first downs, 4 were touchdowns, like not too shabby. And I get a little bit crazy. Like it just reminds me of Christian Wilkins at Clemson, the way that they used him like that. And I know that he's not that, but it does remind me of that. So that's somebody that I find really super interesting, maybe as a late round flyer too. But right on, man. Good job, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you, Ricky. I appreciate it. Glad to have you call him back in.
Yeah, there you go. Ricky, love it. Again, the phone lines are open. That's youtube.com/boygreen25. If you'd like to call into the program. Again, we have Drew Beatty here at Iron City Film. He is of draftprofessors.com, baby. There are several draft professors. Speaking of school, actually, Drew, break that down. How does that work? You're a draft professor, right? So when a teacher's giving you lip there with your finals coming up, you're like, actually, I'm a fellow professor, so I need you to speak to me in a better tone. How does that conversation go?
Exactly. Yeah, I just fire back at them. That they don't clearly not familiar with the caliber of draft professor that I am. So I gotta let them know in the classroom, of course.
That's it. That's the only way to deliver it. Deliver it hot, hot and heavy. All back at him. Again, guys, continue to send in your questions and comments here on the program. Let's go through some of those guys here coming up on the program. One of the things I wanted to mention to you as you're going through some of these boomer bust guys is, can you give me, if you don't have a particular exact draft stock, because I love in the Beast, I read Dane Brugler's work and going through it, he has like draft grades for all these different players. Go through some of your boomer bust guys here. What is the draft stock as you see it with where you believe? We mentioned a little bit, obviously, with a couple of guys like Mason Taylor, like Shamar Stewart. Let's go back to him at the beginning of the conversation. Where is he going in this draft, in your opinion?
Yeah, so for me, I've got a mid-first round grade on him, but as far as where I think he's going to go, I think it's kind of like the Shadur Sanders conversation where like he has a stretch of teams he has to get through and then he could slide. So like for me, it's, does he get past that stretch from 7, 8, 9? And now the Saints are probably out of that equation now a little bit more because you have the Derek Carr injury that's probably going to force them to do something stupid in the draft.
Nice.
But the Jets, I think, are in play for Shamar Stewart. I think the Panthers are really in play, but they really like Jalen Walker and the other Georgia guy, Michael Williams, that we briefly talked about. So I think that's probably the direction they go, but Shamar Stewart's in play. So like if he gets past 7, 8, I think he's probably going to slip more to like the 16, 17, 18 range. Maybe the Bears, but I think they're pretty sold on a running back, which is crazy to me. But I think it's probably going to be either that very tail end of the top 10, or he's going to go in like that 15 to 20-ish range to me.
Okay. I have another Jalen Walker thing I want to get back to you. I heard a whisper over the weekend, and you could tell me what you think of this draft whisper. So make sure I don't forget this because we have another phone call to get to here in just a minute here on the program. So let's bring him up. I believe he's ready. Let's get to the latest member of the Boy Green Comic Club. Hap here is on the channel. What's up, Hap? Hey now.
Man, I figured it out. Man, if I can figure it out, anybody can.
There we go.
Again, we're printing that on the T-shirts, baby. Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, I was curious. Do you see any teams, the most likely team that will trade up and try to get our 7th-round pick for us to trade back?
Yeah, that's something I believe we briefly talked about last week too. I think the Saints are now a massive option because you've seen Derek Carr go out with that shoulder injury. And to be honest with you, I think we've heard some smoke about that being kind of like the Deshaun Watson, like re-injury of the Achilles, where they're not actually injured. The NFL just wants to spin it that way so they can, make some things happen there. But I think they're really in on Shedeur Sanders. They love Shedeur Sanders down in New Orleans. And I think that's probably a team that's looking to get up. They might even need to get ahead of the Jets. Who knows? I don't know how the Jets, there's been some smoke about Shedeur Sanders. Woody Johnson loves him reportedly. I don't know how the coaching staff feels. So I think that's an option with the Saints. I think teams that really love Jalen Walker, because there's a lot of teams that love that. The Panthers really want him. So the teams are looking to get one spot ahead of him to steal Jalen Walker. So I think there's going to be a market for 7.
If the Saints come up and go what are the Saints picking now? 15 or where are they picking?
They're
at
at
9.
They're 9. Oh, that's only even 2 picks back. Who do you think the Jets would do you think Warren or one of the tackles will still be in play at that 9?
I think I think if Membo is there at 7, he'll still be there at 9. I think pretty much all of the players that you're in the market for at 7 will still be there at 9 because the Panthers and whoever's trading up probably are not a threat to take them.
And you mentioned the 4 quarterbacks going in the first, but they're probably just 2 in the first 10, maybe.
I would say, yeah. I think Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders used to go in the top 10, and then I think Milroe and Dart are probably more on the back end of the first round.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Wow. Okay, so I think we got some chips to play here, and we'll see what goes on. All right, guys. Peace out.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
the latest member to the Boy Green Coffee Club, baby. You love to see it. Yeah, we were talking about this on the show yesterday. This was the theme, the Derek Carr injury. I'm like, Saints, come on down. We can take advantage of this team that is now in absolute desperation with guys like Spencer Rattler, who, by the way, I loved coming out of the draft way back in the day. Like, I know he was a rookie last year, but just like his story, I was hoping and hyping it. And then as things have turned out, I'm like, I don't know about that. So I'm rooting for him. But yeah, the Saints have a 2nd round pick and 2 third-round picks. I think you can bet them over the barrel and try to mix and match and see what you can get from that perspective. Now, back to my Jalen Walker rumor that I heard, and it's this, Drew. I hear that Cam Ward's going number 1. I don't know if you've heard that rumor. That rumor, has sort of been making some
very well kept secret.
Yeah, and 2 and 3, obviously you have Cleveland and the Giants. By all accounts, it sounds like it's Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, whatever order, which goes to New England. Now, you've told us, hey, root for Will Campbell, baby, which I'm all about, them left tackle being Will Campbell for them. But I heard another whisper, and you just tell your reaction to this, that New England goes, F Will Campbell. Give me Jalen Walker at 4th overall, and let's go to town. And I heard that went, what? Because of Mike Vrabel, and apparently Jalen Walker is a Mike Vrabel guy, whatever the hell that means. What do you react to that whisper I heard?
Have also heard some smoke about Jalen Walker before. And now I feel like there's been Jalen Walker smoke to every team in the top 7 or top 8. I don't. He's a guy that the NFL loves. He's number 6 on my big board. I'm a huge Jalen Walker fan as well. I think they are like, they love like the alpha dog mentality that especially at linebacker at edge that Mike Vrabel played when he was in the NFL. Again, I'm not sure that I could see him over offensive line, assuming both the blue chip guys in Carter and Hunter are gone. I think they probably still go Membo or Will Campbell. I think he's still in play too. I think that smoke's kind of cooled off a little bit. But with Jalen Walker, I think that because there's so much versatility there, he's got the experience at inside linebacker as well as edge. I think he's one of the best athletes in this class. Very, very high ceiling as a pass rusher. I think you're kind of looking at that like Hassan Reddick, like chance with him, who has some experience with the Jets, I know. Where like he's a guy that came out of college as a tweener and went to Arizona and had to went to full-time edge and had a very hard transition to learning how to be a full-time speed rusher after playing both in college, playing that hybrid role. So I think a lot of teams are going to be turned off by the 31-inch arms. He's not a measurables guy at all. I do think he's going to go high. I don't think he's going to go 4. I think that's probably still offensive line if both the blue chip guys are gone.
That's funny. Now that you say it out loud, they're seeming the Jets. Jalen Walker. There has literally been a rumor about everyone about Jalen Walker. So Jalen Walker must have a great agent, I guess. That's the result of that one, I suppose, that's coming through. But I appreciate you reacting to my senseless rumors. I'm hearing, hey, more memberships being gifted for Lily and Big D with a 5-pack combination. Let's roll. Apple tickets so far this month. You're number 4 in our top 5 biggest gifters so far this month. We appreciate it. Every time we get 5 or more raffle tickets gifted, well.
Here's what I do know. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
AG. Here are the 5. Truman Dumel, Patrick Cahill, DLB_1 Jets Arm, Hunter Hadziki, and John B. You guys are all now members of the Boy Green Coffee Club. Shout out to Floyd Lilly and Big D. Keep the raffle tickets flowing, baby. Again, today and tomorrow are the last 2 days to submit them in as well here on the show. And Luca asks, how do I gift memberships? Well, if you're watching on YouTube and you see the little money sign, you click that. You get a bunch of options that pop up on your screen. The final one that says gift channel memberships, click that and you can gift as many as you'd like. There are no limit to how many raffle tickets you could gift, Luca. So feel free to do that. And if somehow that is not eligible, it's not working for you, depending on your Android, iPhone, people out in the audience, you guys can also PayPal or Venmo. That is at BoyGreen25, BOY Green the color 25. You can send money over and just write in your little description what it's for. Hey, this is Luca, and I'm trying to get this. Luca, if you prefer, you can give super chats if you'd like as well, but that should be an option available. Here, I'll show you guys on the big screen real quick here. Let me see if I can do this. All right. Yes. All right. Let me do this real quick for all you guys in the audience. Show and tell time here, Drew. Show and tell time. Here we go. Present. Yeah, I'm sure this is happening in college these days. So there you go. Let me throw this up here on the screen. So, okay, I'm sharing this is like Inception right now because we're seeing ourselves. This is super trippy. But, okay, there's a money sign right here. You click on this. Show your support for Paul Boy Green Eston Jr. There's super stickers, super chat, membership, and then membership gifting. You click that, and then you can gift some memberships. It's just that simple. It's that purple option right there on the screen, everybody. So that is how you can gift YouTube memberships. And again, if for some reason it is not working, you guys can use PayPal or Venmo at BoyGreen25 if you prefer as well. And people who are asking to receive a membership, first off, you can just buy one yourself. It's $2.99 in the YouTube description down below. But if you'd like to receive them, it's random by YouTube, and it's the people that comment and like the videos the most, they say. That's how they randomly pluck them. So keep supporting, and maybe one day you'll get the little gift membership fairy come over to your window and drop something under your pillow, I guess, which is sort of creepy in a few ways, but nonetheless, here we are. All right, Drew, before we wrap up the show, a couple more minutes here with you before we sign off on this puppy. Let's go through a couple more of your boom bust guys in terms of draft stock. Who else? Like you mentioned, your Rutgers offensive lineman. You said, where do you have him graded, and where is he going to go again? Can you remind us?
So I've got a mid third round grade on him. So he's like floating right around between that, like into the top 75, in between that and top 100. So I really like him. I think right now, consensus wise, like he's like in the 200s on the PFF board, but I would expect him to probably go somewhere in the 5th round, maybe like early 6th at the latest. So probably like a mid day 3 guy. I have him rated as like a late day 2. But he's somebody I'm a lot higher on. But yeah, I'd expect him to go probably midway through day 3.
Okay, here's a random. This breaking news just coming in on Jets draft. We'll throw this up on the big board, baby. Let's dive on in over here. NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport says Mason Graham, one of the draft's elite prospects, is visiting the Jets for a top 30 visit tomorrow. That'll be on Tuesday. He added in here, NYJ has spent considerable amount of time with Graham, including formal interview at the Combine, dinner the night before his pro day, and now the top 30 visit. But lay it to us straight here, Drew. Is he getting past Jacksonville at 5?
I got to be honest, the further we get into this thing, and also I'd like to go ahead and say to anybody hearing like smoke on Twitter about draft stuff, you got to take it with a grain of salt for a while. But as soon as you get to 2 weeks out from the draft, that's the point where you can start taking things seriously, because NFL teams finalize their draft boards April 10th, it'd be April 10th this year. It's 2 weeks before the draft is when they finalize things. So everything you hear after that point is pretty real. And the deeper we get into this thing, the more I think Mason Graham has a chance of being there at 7.
Wow, really?
Because I think, great. Like we mentioned, the Jalen Walker smoke. I think that's a big thing to Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville's in play for Armand Mimbo. So I think there are a couple of different ways Jacksonville could go at 5. Now, maybe it's all prospect fatigue, and we're just trying to find new ways to talk about Jacksonville.
Could be.
We've just penciled in Mason Graham to them forever. But the more I think about this, I think the more chance there is that Jacksonville makes kind of a crazy move at 5, and Mason Graham slips to 7 with the Jets. And I think that's their best case scenario. So.
Okay, there you go. That's good to hear. Let's sort of wrap up here on that. I've asked you this question before, but just to bring it back up, since Mason Graham is back up, Mason Graham was listed at insert weight at college. Okay, it was 316, maybe 310, something like that. At the Combine, he measured it at like 296, and we were like, oh boy. And then at his pro day, he was back over the 300-pound mark. Does that bother you at all, the fluctuation in weight?
Not in the slightest, because you see it with every single prospect now. These guys are all getting terrible advice from their agents to drop 20, 30 pounds and show up at the combine super, super light and completely different from their playing weight. It's in the vain effort to run faster and test a little bit better. But like teams and evaluators want to see you at the weight you're playing at. They don't want to see you run 0.2 of a second faster because you dropped 20 or 30 pounds. So the weight fluctuation is going to happen with everybody because agents are telling him to drop weight for the combine. It sucks. You want to see him at their playing weight, but no, he's going to be back up to what he was in college at the NFL level.
And then the last Mason Graham question here, and then we'll get you out of here, Drew. I've heard some people say exactly like best case scenario would be great for Mason Graham to be to the Jets. Let's go. That's a Brutus Beefcake next to Quentin Williams. I've heard others say on Mason Graham, he's too like Quentin Williams. So they've mentioned the 3 technique in terms of alignment. They've mentioned some of that if you have 2 like-minded defensive tackles that are similar from that perspective, it's bad. What's your reaction to that?
Now, I think there is like the whole redundancy conversation is relevant at certain positions. Like receiver, there's some talk about it there. You don't want to have 2 receivers of the same type, which I understand. I might not agree with it, but I understand the conversation there. On the interior defensive line, like you just want dudes. Give me 2 Quentin Williams that want to kill quarterbacks. I mean, you can't go wrong there. There's no threat of redundancy in play style on the interior defensive line messing up a defensive front. I mean, I think you just want 2 guys that are incredible pass rushers that want to kill quarterbacks. And I think you put 2 guys like Quentin Williams and Mason Graham on the interior right there. There are very, very few interior offensive line units that can handle that kind of pass rushing juice on the inside there. And interior pressure kills every quarterback in the league. So,
yeah, I was about to say, every time I hear that, I'm like, yeah, I'll take 2 Quentin Williams. That was an option. Phenomenal. But I'm like, maybe it's just my peanut brain, and I'm not thinking.
No, you nailed it. People
levels.
Kind of stuff.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, well, Drew, fun show as always, my man. I'm really digging these, and boy, if my math is correct, a week from today, we're going to be mere days from the 2025 NFL draft the next time we speak, man. So this is getting real.
We're right up on it. It's crazy. For a while, it felt like it was, just so far away. It felt like it was, 2 years until the draft, and now we're here. We're a week and a half away. It's wild. Give us some plugs, Drew. Obviously, I've been talking about it. You are one of the many wonderful draft professors at draftprofessor.com. What are you guys cooking up? And personally for you, what content is flowing that people can obviously catch up on at Iron City Film on Twitter/X, but what else is cooking? Yeah, you can find pretty much all my content at Iron City Film, like you just said, on Twitter or X. I post everything there. All the film cut-ups, draft talk, articles go on there. I do some Titans and draft writing overall for StadiumRant.com. I run an NFL draft channel over at NFL Trading Room, part of the Fantasy Trading Room branch. We just started that up, so we'll have some content up there soon. But yeah, pretty much everything I do you can find over at Iron City Film on Twitter or X. Beautiful. Free thing here is Lucas says like and subscribe, and that's what Dade at County McFly says. Great show today, boys. Everyone hit the like button. It's free to do. Like the video, hit subscribe. And again, the rest of today and tomorrow, the last days to submit your raffle tickets in for our draft spectacular, which is the official Jets draft hat, draft shirt, and the movie Draft Day. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And me and Drew will see you next week. Tomorrow, Nick Baumgartner from The Athletic joins us here on Boy Green Daily. Looking forward to that conversation. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Take care.